back on the conversation on the TYT network. Let me give you an amazing stat first. 20% of the country not only doesn't believe in taking the vaccine for coronavirus, but they believe that the government is planting a chip inside the vaccine to follow them. By the way, if you want to know where the chip is that follows you around, it's right here, it's on your phone, okay? The government doesn't need to put it into your blood system. You're all carrying it around and corporations are following you. And some of those same corporations, unfortunately, are helping to spread the misinformation about coronavirus in the first place. But we're in a situation where 1/5 of the country has lost its mind. Let's talk to someone who's an expert on healthcare, and let's see if we can begin to fix it. Laura Packard is founder of Healthcare Voices. She's gone through significant healthcare issues herself, including stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. She's spoken at the Democratic National Convention. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So on this COVID situation, obviously Joe Biden talked about how Facebook is killing people, then he walked back that comment, but social media is an issue. So how much of an issue do you think it is for spreading misinformation? And then the hardest question of all, what can be done about it?
Well, the unvaccinated are not all one group of people. Some people, they may not logistically be able to get access to a vaccine. Maybe they have disabilities, maybe they're homebound, or maybe they are a shift worker and they don't have time off for recovery from the vaccine. But there's also a significant number of Americans that refuse to get vaccinated, and they spout a bunch of garbage for why they won't do it. And social media is amplifying the misinformation and causing this epidemic of lies.
Yeah, so I want to get back to how to disprove them in a second, but because it's so frustrating. I mean, you called it garbage, and it's so, look, I don't know how you disprove that there aren't chips in the vaccine that track you, right? But I do know that now 99.5% of the deaths are for the unvaccinated. So that's a fact. All the doctors in the country are not making it up in unison because Soros or Fauci is making them. That's insanity. Although 20% of the country has lost their minds. But part of the reason they've lost their minds is because they're not getting the correct information. And Laura, that happens to a lot of folks on a lot of different issues. And I joke around about on the show, when my dad first went on Facebook, he's in his 80s now, he's like, it's amazing how much people care about Turkish news. Because he thought everybody's seeing the same thing that he's seeing on Facebook, right? He doesn't know that it's personalized. I've talked to QAnon people on this show, and they have no idea what's happening in the outside world because they're only getting certain information and they're viewing it as authoritative. So now that's a super hard thing to fix. Do you have any ideas on how to fix that?
Well, these social media platforms are delivering a funnel to radicalism. You start watching one YouTube video and YouTube will show you more like it. You join one Facebook group and Facebook will recommend others like it. So they're taking people down this ladder to extremism, and they make half-hearted statements about, oh, they're cleaning things up. Oh, they'll get rid of the misinformation. But even today, even right now, how do you report somebody on Twitter who is tweeting lies about the vaccine? There's no easy button to report these falsehoods, and there certainly isn't the infrastructure on the back end to take care of it.
Yeah, look, and it's so complicated and nuanced because I don't want to go back to the bad old days where you only had corporate media, and so our show is online, and we've gotten correct information to millions upon millions, tens of millions of people, right? And we're also on traditional media. And so there's no easy answer here. But honestly, I think Twitter's the worst. And Twitter has its own upsides too. Sometimes you can influence people in power or reporters or et cetera, right? But Twitter does nothing about trolls and bots and over the top violent statements. It's the violent statements, sometimes they do something about, depends on if you're powerful enough, big enough, et cetera, right? But given that I don't want to end social media, given that it has upsides, is there any like simple steps that they can take and haven't taken to at least thwart some of this misinformation?
Well, some people have done a report of the top 12 misinformation spreaders on Facebook in particular. I'm not sure which good government nonprofit did that report, but this information is out there on who the worst people are and how their content is still being amplified through social media platforms. So even if this is an entire iceberg of a problem, you could at least start taking care of the misinformation at the top and stop amplifying it. Whether or not you want to restrict somebody's account, like the social media platforms have done with former President Trump, you can at least make sure that your algorithm is not promoting anti-vax groups to people when they sign up for one, and that the YouTube algorithm isn't forwarding people to more and more extremist propaganda.
Yeah. Of course, if you're in business, especially in digital media, you know that they want to keep people on their platforms as long as possible. And the way that you keep people on there longer is by constantly giving them things that reinforce their current opinion. So then it becomes a loop and it makes it nearly impossible to get out. That's why the QAnon people that I've talked to, they're not even aware of any other information. And because they stopped watching TV, a lot of them didn't read the newspapers in the first place. And since they're getting their information only from that vicious loop of misinformation, they genuinely believe it. I mean, look, a gigantic majority of Republicans believe that Joe Biden did not win the election, that Trump won it, and that the majority of Republicans believe the January 6th riot at the Capitol was Joe Biden's fault, not Donald Trump's fault. So but Laura, we got to go to the second half of that conversation, which is apparently a lot of people were susceptible to this in the first place. And so how do you talk to someone, and I'm exhausted trying to talk to them. How do you talk to someone and say every doctor in the country isn't lying? And if they can't understand that simple concept, I mean, we got a mental health issue that is larger than we suspect in society.
Well, it sounds like, at least in the last few days, in some southern states, the rate of vaccination is increasing. And that might be because the media is covering doctors and people whose family members have died from this misinformation. Those stories are starting to be told more. So it looks as though that's increased the vaccination rate at least a little bit. But I don't want everybody in this country to have to lose somebody they love before they wake up and realize that you would much rather have the vaccine than have the virus. I got vaccinated. I had a little bit of a fever, sore arm for a day or so. I was tired. I slept it off. My stepfather got COVID-19 and he is no longer here.
Yeah, no, I read this story today of a Republican congressman. He's had coronavirus twice now and didn't get vaccinated. And now his wife has it. Now one of his kids has it. And then at the very end of the story was the kicker that, oh, by the way, his father-in-law already died from coronavirus. And he still won't get the vaccine because Trump, he thinks, I guess, that Trump doesn't want him to, or Tucker Carlson doesn't want him to. So, Laura, I'm at a point, I think a lot of people are at a point where they want to just throw their hands up and go, if you guys just want to form a death cult, I don't know what to do about it. Good luck to you.
Well, the problem is that the larger the unvaccinated population, the more coronavirus is circulating in our communities, the more variants there are going to be that can evade the virus, or just people that have already been vaccinated that get hit with this Delta variant. I have friends that have been vaccinated and they got sick just because there's so much COVID-19 circulating in the communities. So it affects everybody when somebody doesn't get vaccinated. And one of the worst parts is, you know, that every single person on primetime Fox News has been vaccinated. Trump's been vaccinated, his family's been vaccinated. So they do one thing in the privacy of their own homes, and then when they get on television, they tell their audience something else.
Now, it's the same thing they did with mail-in balloting. They all did mail-in balloting and then said we should take away mail-in balloting for everybody else. But Laura, I really think it's a mental health issue more than anything else. I mean, 20% of the country has honestly lost its mind. they see Trump hold up a picture of him sending in his mail-in ballot, and they go, "That's right, we gotta hate the libs who are doing mail-in ballots," even though they just see their demigod doing it right there. They don't care about facts anymore. What do you do? I mean, and the Republican Party, if we're being honest about it, has trained them not to care about facts for a long time. 99% of the world's scientists say that there's climate change. They go, no, I think scientists in India and Brazil and America and Russia all got together, and France, everywhere else, and they all decided to lie about temperature readings. That's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Yes. There's an island, I believe it's off North Carolina, where the island is literally dying because of climate change. The water's rising, it's flooding people out, and yet they voted for Trump because somehow 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4. And I don't know what you do about that. If people are so resistant to facts, it's not gonna be you or I that reach them. It's probably gonna be their family and their doctors. And I just hope that somebody reaches them soon.
All right, well, we did get one good thing out of this interview. I just came up with a new term, anti-factors. Okay, they're not just anti-vaxxers, they're against facts. And Anna and I talked about it in the show on Monday. The guys who said, oh, well, no, I want Trump to build a wall. And then they realize their property is in Mexico and America, in Texas. And they voted against their own interests. And they're like, oh no, right? And people who have undocumented immigrants in their families voted for Trump. My uncle in 2016, when is Muslim, he voted for Trump, who wanted a Muslim ban. And propaganda is an amazing thing, and I think going forward for all issues, including this healthcare issue, everything is a media war. That's just the facts of today.
And it's unfortunate that there's at least one major cable network that their business, their profit is in lies.
Yeah, Fox News. Okay, and then there's smaller ones that do it as well. All right, Laura Packard, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.